I've been known to do lines of coke off a Hell's Angels bar. So when I was sliding across, I hit that reflector, my back tire comes off the ground just enough to... I might be one of the only non-Hell's Angels that ever rode through the bar. The way I was living and everything was going was I was very short-lived. So at the time, I was in a motorcycle club, and my hair was on fire, riding across bridges, standing on my seat at 100 miles an hour, across Coronado Bridge. They clocked me at 140 on my seat. It's just that's the kind of stuff I was doing. So, but they said they lost track because they said it was way over 120. They said they'd lost. They said, I don't know how fast you were going, but it was definitely in a pretty high range, I have another motorcycle right now that I could beat that.
So was this, what was she, a
I didn't think I was
psychologist or a
gonna ask her
psychiatrist?
I don't know. I don't even care.
It doesn't matter.
They're both the same. One can prescribe medications, one can't.
So was she co-authoring the book with you and treating you as a patient?
No, the treatment was pretty much during the writing of the book, kind of, because it was, and when I went through mental health counseling, then I realized all the stuff that she was doing. It was basic counseling sessions, and then getting information and working on stuff and digging, and that's counseling sessions. But the thing was, it was like the idiot me signs a contract, when I was on, all the opioids and everything else. And I was doing other stuff too, because when you're in a motorcycle club, you're going to get access to a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I've been known to do lines of coke off a Hell's Angels bar, back in those days. It was loose, and the Hell's Angels got to be really good friends with me because I was riding a 1960 Kickstarter, motorcycle. And one time I was riding and I crashed when I was riding with those guys. And it was me and the president of HAs, Pete, Dago Pete. And we were in front of a pack of about 300 motorcycles. And then he started racing and he started really going and we were leaving the pack. And I was riding on a motorcycle that I built. And it had kind of wide tires. It was an FXR frame, which is a really good bike. But I just couldn't do what he was doing. And so I eventually was way over in a turn, and I was like, my floorboards were scraping so bad. I was throwing sparks everywhere. I was almost to the point where it was like a race bike, like with the knee touching. And that was on a Harley. And the reflectors in California, they're above ground. They're above the asphalt. So they're up in the air. Mm-hmm. They just stick them on with glue, And then, so when I was sliding across, I hit that reflector, my back tire comes off the ground just enough to, and threw me high side. And so I high sided in a turn and broke my foot, dislocated my shoulder, and messed my bike up a little bit, but I was sliding on top of the motorcycle, and I was able to roll off it, and I didn't get hurt real bad. And so the rest of the pack finally catches up to us, and I'm sitting there against a tree, and a bunch of guys are wrenching on the bike, and I rehook a few things off to get it so I could ride it again. And so the P comes over, and he kicks me in the foot, the broken foot. And he says, hey, let's go. I was like, all right, your bike's running. So I get over there, and I'm getting up like this. And get on the motorcycle. I'm like, because my arm was dislocated, but I didn't know it was. And so we get back to the bar, and they say, hey, let's ride through the bar. So I might be one of the only non-Hell's Angels that ever rode through the bar. But so we go to the back door, and we ride through the bar, and everybody's like hitting us on the back, and I'm burning out and stuff. I ride off, and I jump off the curb and park the bike. And then I get off the bike, and I'm hurting bad, man. My shoulder's down to like here. And so it's messed up bad. So I walk into the bar, and I got my hand tucked in my thing like that. And a New York HA guy, Hammer. And this dude is an old Vietnam guy, and he's about 6'4", just a huge guy. He probably weighs 300, and he can bench press a car. The guy's big dude. And he was like, hey, caveman, what are you doing, man? What's wrong with your arm? And I was like, I don't know, man. I was like, back when I wiped out, I think I hurt my shoulder. He said, well, take your cut off, and let me see what's going on. And because he was a corpsman too, which was awesome. So he says, dude, your arm is dislocated. And he was like, you just rode another 30 miles with a dislocated arm. And I was like, well, or 20 miles, or however far it was. I could probably figure it out. I know where I wrecked. It was up in the mountains, up past northern San Diego, way up in the mountains, where all the race bikes go. That's what we were doing. And then he put me on the pool table, wiped all the balls off, and people got mad. But he was like, and everybody's like, so he put me on the pool table and relocated my arm. And I was like, hey, somebody get me I asked for Jack Daniels. I said, hey, let me have some Jack Daniels, man. I got it. And so one of the people got back on the bar and he got me some Jack Daniels, and I was chugging Jack. And then I'm good. I'm like, dude, And then he gave me a poster. He signed it, and he wrote on there, "Chris, you're a hell of a man. You're a friend till the end. Pete, Dago, HAMC." And that's like the life I was living. And so I figured I was dead. And so when this person started doing it, I was like, yeah, whatever. I was living so far on the edge that I would be dead almost every day back then. Because I was riding so hard and living so hard. I'm swimming out to my sailboat or whatever I was doing back in those days too. So it was a crazy life.
Damn.
So I was pretty far out.
Yeah. Sounds like
And she was counseling me. She says she wasn't, but she was. I went through the courses. I know what she was doing. But, I mean, at this point, I don't care. But I want everybody to know out there that I fought with a lawyer against that book. I didn't want that book published. It should have never been published, you know? But at that point, the book went out. And then, like, 3 days later, I get a phone. I'm getting people knocking on my door in my house. After that book came out, people are knocking on my door in my house and asking to do interviews. Like, news trucks were in front of my house, you know? Because as soon as SEAL Team 6, transgender, the whole world was like, ah. And then all the people that support that whole narrative just saw their first champion. Because, I mean, it was so far out that it's easy when you look at, like, if you're like this, somebody who's like a hairdresser, it turns out to be transgender. That's like, yeah, okay, hairdresser, okay, cool. But when you have a Navy SEAL from Dam Neck, the whole world went crazy. Yeah. And so they're all sitting there in my front yard, and I keep saying no, and they're knocking on my door, and I have to put signs on my front yard saying, you know, get away, no interviews. And then finally I get CNN, Anderson Cooper calling me. He says, hey, I want to do an interview. And I said, I'll be respectful, I'm going to do this and do that. I was like, well, I'm not going anywhere. I said, if you guys come down here to my house, and I'll do an interview. Next day, he gets on an airplane, flies down to my house. And there was a storm, huge storm watch going on, which was funny, because then when he lands at the airport, because it was such a quick thing, he just jumped on a civilian plane and just flew. He shows up at the airport, he's walking to the airport, and the storm is going. So everybody thinks he's there for the storm. You know, it's pretty funny. But he was there for my storm, you know? And that was the biggest mistake I ever made. Because I was just sick of all those trucks in my yard, and everybody knocking on my door. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do one interview, and I'm done. As soon as I did Anderson Cooper, then it was like the floodgates were open. Then I got even more people asking, because then it was like some of the story was out there, and it was a very short one. And then CNN calls back again, and they say, hey, we want to do a documentary. So it was a Krista Kristen, because that lady, because I was suing her with a lawyer, we couldn't use the name of the book, Warrior Princess. They would have used the name of the book on that CNN special, because I was fighting with her with a lawyer, and it was just crap, everything was going on. She would not let us use the name of the book for the CNN thing. So they had to title it Krista Kristen, you know? So, I mean, this all helps for the story to tell you that I messed up a lot. Should have never done Anderson Cooper. Should have never done any of that. It never happened. When she was talking to me about that, I didn't know anything about psychology. And when you talk to psychologists as a military person, because we're institutionalized, we think they're trying to help. We think they're the experts. We think that they're the captain trying to make us good, or they're Master Chief trying to do something. But that wasn't the case at all. I don't think that's the case with very many of them at all right now, because they're getting rid of all the terminology out of their manuals. They're erasing a whole part of that book to try to make everybody into transgender. And that's what I quit doing, that counseling, because it's criminal what they're doing. They're teaching all these people all, like, it's not right. You know, they're making people transgender. And that's what, they didn't do that to me. I did it to myself. Because I just fell into it. And I was just like, I don't care. At that point, I didn't care.
Well, I mean, you were in a very vulnerable state, you know, and they
made a lot
took
of
advantage,
mistakes.
it sounds like.
Yeah.
So how did these conversations go? You know, it obviously started with you showing the picture.
Yeah.
And then...
Well, then the next day we met, and then we met more. And then it was just, the questions were the questions that I would have been asking myself if I was a counselor. You know, the digging and trying to figure stuff out. It's a counselor work. I want to know about your childhood. I want to know about your military. I want to know about where did the PTSD come from and all this other stuff, and where did that. And so all the stuff she was doing was counseling sessions.
At what point did it come up to actually transition?
Oh, pretty quick after. Yeah. Real fast after.
What did that initial conversation sound like?
Oh, I don't remember. I just remember that pretty soon after I was getting dressed all the time and I didn't care anymore. And I was like, I'm going to do it. And I don't care what anybody says. And I'm just going to try to figure something out. And I said, if this is the only way I can find happiness for myself, then this is what I'm going to do.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.